Welcome to the Art of Conscious Living. I'm very pleased today to have back as a returning guest Ashanti Branch. She's a former high school teacher for math in Oakland, California, and presently he's a caseworker. I'm going to be speaking to him about how he has inspired so many young men and women to transform their life from possibly being in the gangs, possibly thinking about going into the gangs and being a gang member, or people who are just wanting to feel more empowered. He has inspired many, hundreds upon hundreds of people. Meeting the man, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm very pleased today to have him in the studio today to speak to me about this and so much more. Ashanti, thank you. As a returning guest, I welcome you back.
Thank you for having me.
And we have so much to speak about. And
all right.
Thank you for being here today.
I'm excited.
So how are you at this moment in time?
Good. It's been a long day, you know. I work at Fremont High School in Oakland. We're right there in the middle of East Oakland, which is a fairly rough area of Oakland. I love the school. Actually, I'm working at my old high school, the high school I actually graduated from. So it's actually nostalgic to be working at your old high school. But I think I come to my work with a sense of urgency and with a sense of expectation that makes me move with a lot of urgency every day. So I'm like really trying to get things done, and I see so many things that I want to change, but I only have my influence through my title or through my work. But I constantly am out there walking around at lunchtime during the passing periods because I really want our youth to know that education is a way out, right? That through moving themselves and understanding more about education, that's how they're going to move to the future. I think there's a quote by Malcolm X that says, "Education is your passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today." And I use that on my program. I use that on my business card because I truly believe that our youth, if they can recognize that education is their ticket out of whatever situation they find themselves in, whether it's poverty, whether it's trauma, whether it's hurts, or whether it's pains, whether it's any kind of thing, that education is going to be their ticket out. And that's what I'm constantly pushing every day. So every time I see a young person not in class, I'm like, "Where's your class? Go to class," right? And I'm really just kind of keep the process of asking them the same questions because I want them to know that that's important to me. Where are you supposed to be? Where are you supposed to be? Because I think that once they recognize the value that education has for them, that what it can offer them in the future, that their lives will be so much different and so much more powerful. And that's the work. The work is around education.
So let's go back to the very beginning.
Yeah.
You were born and with your mother, and you were the absent father. And at a certain age, a very young age, you were told and asked that you were going to be the man of the family now. And you were like 5 years old at that time.
Yeah, I was like 7.
You were 7.
Yeah.
And then what did that absolutely feel like? And what did that mean to you as a 7-year-old, that you're the man of the family being a little boy?
Yeah, I think one of the things that challenged me in that situation was, so my father, he died before I was born. So I never got the chance to meet him. It wasn't a choice that I got. You know, he died 2 months before I was born. And my situation was that only up until this past summer, 2012, did I meet the branch side of my family. So for all these years, I've been operating as just trying to be the best man I can be, not having any legacy left for me, not having any idea of what should I be trying to do? What am I emulating? What family history am I looking from, right? I knew my mom's family, and that was always strong and strengthened me. But at 7, when I remember when I had this conversation with my mom, like I had to wash dishes. Like when we turned 7 in my house, I was the oldest, so she made the rule with me. When you turn 7, you start washing dishes. And I was like, all right. And one day I didn't want to wash dishes. So I was like, I don't want to wash dishes today, right? And she was like, well, you're the man of the house, so you have responsibilities. I remember thinking, I'm the man of the house. And I remember having an intellectual conversation with myself about it, but I was like, I'm a man at 7 by washing these dishes. So I took every task, you know, I think she used that phrase a lot because as a woman, you know, I think a lot of women, they try and raise their young men the best way they know, but a woman really doesn't know how to raise a man because they're not a man, right? And without the absence of a man there telling you, here's what you need to do to be a man, you learn from whoever's around. So she says, washing the dishes makes you part of the manhood, then I take care of washing the dishes. Mopping the floor, that's part of being the man of the house, and I'll mop the floor. And so it became her way of kind of describing the things that she needed me to do, which in her mind made me hold that title. But ultimately, I didn't know what that meant. Ultimately, she didn't know what that meant.
Were there any other men in the family, uncles and?
Yeah, luckily my grandfather was around. My grandfather would kind of took on that role in terms of, we lived in Oakland, so he lived right there in Oakland. My mom was born in Arkansas, so she moved out to California to live around him. And he basically kind of set some groundwork, right? He was the pastor at my church, so he basically set the groundwork in terms of, here's I'm gonna hold you to accountability, right?
So what was his idea of being a man? Your grandfather?
We never talked about it. He never really gave me any definitions of that. I just knew that every Sunday we go to church, right? That was just a rule, right? He was a pastor, so I followed that. This is what I have to do, right? Because that's what my granddaddy said, right? So my granddaddy was kind of like, as much as he could be, even he had his own family, he was like the man in my life, So
it would be fair to say that you had to figure it out because nobody else knew around you what it really was to be going into being a young man and what a man was going to be. And nobody was preparing you for being a man.
Yeah. It was just like a lot of these learning by doing, right? So, you people at school, the other young men, they tell you, oh, this is what you got to do. This is how you do it. This is how you talk to girls. This is how you not get in trouble. This is how you talk to the teacher. Like you're learning from other teenagers who are trying to tell you.
Who don't know
themselves.
also.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. So you end up with a village of youth raising the youth. And today we have a lot of that. We have probably so much more of that now with our youth who are trying to teach each other about being men. And so a lot of our young men, they believe that if they have a mustache and they're tall and they're strong and they can get really, really angry, that qualifies them as a man, right? And I think people have different definitions of what they believe manhood is, right?
But you came across something that empowered you and something that demystified all of it, and it gave you a lot of emotional intelligence. And you came across the Mankind Project and other mentors, and you start looking out of the box and reading and educating yourself. So your emotional intelligence level at what age started to develop, and what did you find to really empower yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of layers. I didn't learn about the men's work until maybe the last 3-4 years. When I was in college, I joined a fraternity. So go back to high school. Yeah. High school was a space where I say 8th grade was when everything turned around. There was an incident in class. A student put like a tack in my chair. I jumped up screaming. The teacher was like, "You're going to stay after school." And this teacher I kind of liked, right? I was like a fan of her. I had a crush on her, right? And after school, she was like, I don't care that your father is not around, but life doesn't give you what you want. Life gives you what you get, and you got to make the most out of it. And she said, you're too smart to be acting like you're not. And that conversation has went with me every day. I'll never forget that woman, Ms. Bartlett Preston. I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget the classroom. I remember walking home that day, and the next day everything changed. Like I was realizing that not only am I supposed to be the man of the house, I'm supposed to be setting an example for my younger brother and sister. I'm supposed to be doing something to make my family somehow better. And I can't do that if I'm barely passing my classes and I'm acting like a knucklehead. So the next day, everything changed. And so going through that change academically first it was academic. It was first me saying, I need to take this education thing serious so I can get an education, so that I can go on to college and further my life in that way, right?
And then on an emotional level,
right.
It wasn't about looking like you're less than smart as you were and dumbing down and embracing that and being proud of how intelligent you are. A lot of people think, and the children today, and perhaps at that time, your experience was that you were trying to be less of who you were so you could be tougher and show that you were tougher. And you didn't want to show them how smart you were because that is not really for the others of your age group, that's not showing that you're with them. That's maybe there's a separation there. But you found out from that statement that she said, stop acting like a fool, basically be the intelligent, be your potential. So it was a whole turning point in your ideology of thinking.
It was a shift. And from that moment was when when I said, okay, then being smart is going to be okay for me. Then I'm gonna make a choice that because I am acting like I'm not as smart as I am, I'm doing the bare minimum just to get by, I'm going to switch it up. And that's when the change happened. And so I began to take on the idea that A's and B's are, ideally I want A's, but A's and B's are what I'm going to get in all my classes.
And it's okay for others seeing that you are excelling.
Absolutely. And I'm committed to that, right? So no matter what anybody says, that's what I'm committed to. And it was like almost a night and day change. And what I see today, the reason I started the Ever Forward Club is because what I saw when I first started teaching was that there were so many smart young men. Like my first notice was these Latino and African American young men who were so smart, but they were failing my class. And I was like, look, I'm here every day, prepared. I'll come early. I'll stay late. I'll make you a sandwich at lunchtime. Like, what do you need so you can pass this class? Because you're smart enough. And whenever Forward started, it was around this idea that I need you all to teach me how to be a better teacher. For some reason, you're smart enough, I can see it, but you're not passing my class. So therefore, I need to do something different.
So Forever Forward, tell me about this club.
Yeah, so
what is the basics of it, and who founded it, and what is the logistics of it?
Yeah, so Ever Forward started out of this idea. Like I was teaching my first year, and I had a vision in my mind that I would start the club maybe 5 years after I've been teaching. After I get really good at teaching, I'll start this club. Well, we had this professional development day where they said, look, you got, here's some data I want you to look at. And the data I saw was about these African American Latino males. 43% of them, Latino males, were failing half of their classes or more. The African American males, 47% were failing half. And that for me was not okay. So I said, I stood up, first year teacher, nervous, don't want to make anybody nervous, don't want to say anything that hurt anybody's feelings. And I said, this is something we have to do something about this data. And the principal said, you have any ideas? I said, well, I don't know. She said, well, if you think of something, let me know. Because we want to do something about this data also. And that weekend I decided that Ever Forward couldn't wait 5 years, that it was going to start right away. And that's how it started. And I basically told these young men, I invited them in. I said, look, I'm going to buy you lunch once a week. And what you're going to do in exchange for me buying you lunch is you're going to teach me how to be a better teacher. Tell me what I need to do to help you pass this class. Really, I was selfish. It was really, I want you to pass algebra. I wasn't worried. I mean, at that point, I wasn't really worried about the other classes because I really just figured out how can I get you to pass this one class. And I think once you can figure this out, then the lessons will trickle down.
And you can duplicate it.
Right, I can duplicate, or I can teach the other teachers what they needed, right?
Okay.
And what I realized in the meetings with them is that they didn't think that being smart was okay. Like it was okay. Like it was much more cooler to be able to show how angry you are and to show how cool you are, but showing how smart you are wasn't respected.
And that was not the cool thing to do.
It's not a cool thing to do, be
because
smart.
It's more manly to be showing how tough you can be and angry you can be than to be how smart you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they had the whole thing upside down.
Well, that's their reality. And their reality for them is all that matters, right? Because if that's what they truly believe to be real, then that's real. And so my job was not to tell them you're wrong. It was to say, well, teach me how to do it better for you. And slowly they started to wonder, how do you make it happen? How can you do both? Right? Because they were all smart enough. I'm sure that in their minds at some point they were like, I'm getting D's and F's, and ain't no way I should be getting D's and F's. I can do this work, right? But they're trying to balance out these two different worlds, the cool world and the smart world. And I said, well, look, does anybody have to know you do homework? Who has to know? That's at home. Why don't you just do the homework after school so you don't have to carry the books home? Stay at school till it's finished and you're done. Right? Like I was trying to give them tools so that they don't have to sacrifice their education and their future because of this idea of what other people think. Because it wasn't really what they thought. They didn't think they were dumb. I said, well, what do your grades show? If somebody just looked at your transcript and didn't see your face or didn't know you, what kind of grades would they say this kind of person is? What kind of student they say? If you got all D's and F's, you're not trying very hard. Well, unless you have some learning challenges, and that's something totally different. But these students were totally capable of doing the work. They just chose not to.
So Ashanti, share with me some of the things that they suggested for you and how you could be a better teacher. They must have been very interesting ideas that they came up with.
Yeah, really, they didn't have a whole lot. Most of the time they would be like, "No, you doing enough. You doing enough. You always on us. You always on us. It's on us."
Right.
Like they accepted the fact that it was really on them. Something they would say, "Well, you got to like give us a break sometime. You got to give." I said, "What does a break look like?" I said, "Man, you got to like you can't give homework every day." I'm like, "So you mean I should give you less work so that you have to do less?" And so I really just I took all the advice, but I think for them they knew ultimately that it was on their responsibility to do the work, but because in their mind they were trying to live in two different worlds, it was tough. For me, one of the things I learned is that especially for young men, is that they have a threshold in terms of how much they're willing to take in terms of confrontation, right? And I had to learn about that because I'm really like, hey, let's go, let's get busy, let's get busy. What are you doing, right? And because young men don't always ask for what they need, like I'm having a bad morning. Like they would have a hard time coming to you and say, I'm having a bad morning. Can you give me some space? Instead, they expect that because you just see them, you should know that they're having a bad morning. So sometimes you would have an issue with a student. I'm like, dude, why are you talking to me like that? Man, I'm having a bad morning. I'm like, well, how do I know that, right? My job is to help you do math when you come in here every morning. So I need you to like come to me and say, hey, Branch, I'm having a bad morning. Can you give me some space?
Open communication.
Open communication. But that's a feeling thing, right? Because for young men to touch their feelings sometimes is scary, right? Because they're not used to being able to touch their feelings, right? Because it's not really in our community, definitely in Oakland, there's not a lot of space for young men to be sad. There's not a lot of space for young sad men, right? There's not a lot of space for young shameful men or guilty young men. There's a lot of space for anger, and that's accepted, right? Oh, you're angry, I can tell that. But we as a society also, we have these expectations of how young men should carry themselves, right? And I think that that's something that our young men have grabbed onto, right? We tell young men, I've heard young, parents tell their young boys in the store, stop crying like a little girl, right? So if a young man believes that if I cry, which is a human emotion, right, then I'm acting like a girl, then any emotion that may make me feel sad or want to cry, I'm going to fight it. And I'm going to put something on top of it so that I cover up anything that would make me appear to be weaker than I am, right?
Because the worst thing that he could do is cry, and that would be equaling to his showing weakness, and that would be absolutely forbidden.
It would be dangerous.
Dangerous.
It would be dangerous, yeah. Yes. I think dangerous in their own mind. Like if I'm crying, that means I'm sad. That means I'm weak. And if I'm weak, then I can be taken advantage of by other people who may, for whatever reason, want
advantage. I could be hurt by other people.
That's right.
I could be abused of other people.
That's right.
Where really that's where your power lies, when you embrace that of the crying and your pain and your suffering. You absolutely. Somebody said of one of my other guests, he said that. The tears are like medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's absolutely, that's where the healing is.
Yeah.
So basically in their resistance of the full gamut of all their emotions, they are doing themselves a great discredit.
That's right. And they don't know that. And so one of the things that Ever Forward has done is the way it's set up is that young men meet together in their own circle and young women meet together in their own circle. And it gives young men a safe, confidential space to do their work. Now, I started Ever Forward in 2004, and when I began to learn about the men's work later, I began to recognize, now I see what I've been doing has some context. Because we were meeting together all the time, but I didn't have, besides my fraternity, I didn't have any other guides to go on. And really seeing how the other men's organizations do it, like MDI and the Mankind Project and these other men's organizations, it's around giving men, then in this case, young men, a space to do the things that they need to do to talk about the stuff that they're really dealing with in a healthy way, in a way that if I'm with my other men, then I can let any emotion go, and I know that it's going to stay right here, and I don't take that back to my family. I don't take that back to my school. I don't take it out on my teachers. I'm using it and getting it out of my system in a safe place.
And how does that translate to when they take it from the group, of the forward group, into their normal living habitat and into the school, and they know that others don't know about this? So in the group they're safe, They have permission, and they're giving themselves permission to do it.
Yeah.
But in the real world, outside of the group, they know that others don't know about this. So are they still feeling vulnerable?
Well, I imagine
And how would that work?
Yeah. Well, I think they would imagine they would wonder if anybody in the group talked about what they talked about, right? Like if we had a deep circle and I let it go of some stuff, some baggage, I may be wondering, did anybody tell anybody? Did anybody, right? But I think that's around creating the safety. It's around creating the confidential space. It's around creating the container around the young men that says whatever happens here stays here. And that allows them to be able to go as deep as they need to go. And so when they leave that group, hopefully they're feeling lighter. If I unload some baggage, ideally I'm feeling a little lighter moving into my world, right? Moving into my home, or I have some new tools on how to deal with whatever emotion I'm dealing with, so it doesn't always come out as just anger, right? So it doesn't always come out as just the dominant, the power, this power kind of struggle of emotion.
So they can be softer with everything when they're in the real world with it.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be such a vice grip of just locking down and holding it down. They can move easy with it now.
And they may not be softer. They maybe where they live, they have to put on an exterior. They may have to put on the persona that it is, that I have to be hard, that I have to act a certain way. But it also gives them some other tools. That does the situation require a hammer, or can I use some sandpaper? Right? And most of our young men, they believe that everything needs a hammer. So they begin walking around hammering everything when all they needed was just like a little bit of sandpaper to smooth it out. But they're destroying things. They're destroying their communities. They're destroying their families. They're destroying their classrooms because they don't have any other tools.
That's a wonderful analogy. The
Yeah.
hammer and the sandpaper. It makes me see that one can create more of an inner peace and balance within themselves because they have the tools, as you say.
Yeah.
And without the tools, you're going to use the hammer.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And major destruction. And that's what it's all about.
That's
and
right.
Let's speak about the gang members and ones that you've come across that happen to have appeared in your class when you were the teacher.
Yeah. We've had so many. I mean, I think one of the things I've learned about the gangs is that for young people, that's a safe place. With the absence of a family structure, with the absence of like this caring place where I can just be totally free and totally me, they find some solace in this space where I can just be myself, right? And they're gonna like me no matter what, right? They're gonna give me give me credit no matter what. And they're gonna uplift me, right? Because they want me to totally feel a part of the community. And that's about community building, right? You think about what aspects are the positives and the negatives. Well, there's a lot of negative that goes into those worlds, right? But there's also that part that a lot of young people are looking for, and is a place to belong. I belong to this. People care about me. They look out for me. I mean something. I'm important. And so I think that, and some of the young men that we've worked with, and when I was working in San Lorenzo, they were in their early stages of, hanging around with some gang members. And I think that for me, there's nothing I could tell them, because they're teenagers and they're pulling around a lot of testosterone, a lot of energy, that, hey, don't hang around with them. Don't hang around with them. What we have to do is provide them other places to go and do and things to do that provide them similar types of the positives that take out the negatives. So if I can provide them a place that make them feel like they belong, that helps them be important, that helps them have a sense of family and community, but that don't have the negative elements in them, right? Then that's my work. And so if a lot of young men who I've worked with, the hardest work was like getting them to show up, because right after school they want to go hang out. They want to go hang out over here, and I have a role to play in terms of how can I support you. What do you need? What do you need? How's it going? And so some of them are on the fence, right? Some of them are on the fence where they're just like they don't know where they are. They don't know what they want, but they're kind of like they got people over here that are inviting them. People are inviting them to hang out and feel like a part of the family. And so Ever Forward has always tried to say, look, what you do in your life, we can't necessarily change it. Anything you decide to do, you're going to decide. So we can just provide you some options, some alternatives. Hey, we got some fun events coming up. We got some field trips coming up. Just come check out what we do. and see if it fits into your things that make you excited, that make you feel important, the things that make you feel like there's something good for you there. And that's hopefully how it begins to just kind of help them to spend a little less time over there and more time over here. And I think that a lot of students who have just not known, just don't know anything else, right? Maybe that's how they grew up. Our job is to try and give them just some support and help them around that, you know?
So it's not about putting the attention of what's wrong of what they're doing. It's giving them the vehicle of what, something else that is right or something that's different. And then when they're trying out this different, it's not taking so much energy to tear down something that is bad. So we're not trying to take away the gangs or show them the negative in that. It's saying, well, look at this, and they can make their own ideas and their own decisions that there's something positive in there and start to learn about that. So it's not about tearing down something, it's about building something.
Yeah.
And in that building of something, then they can see if it's a fit for them.
Absolutely.
And why would it not be a fit for them?
Absolutely.
Where it's all about empowering, grounding themselves, meeting up with themselves, and knowing themselves probably for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, my work around being an educator never was my job is to eradicate gangs. My job was to save young people who want to make changes in their life. And I think there's a lot of young people who want to make changes in their life. And a lot of times they choose options that they feel are the most beneficial to themselves. But if I had options, if I knew that there was an option for me that I could live safe, that I could live free, I could feel important, that I could have a sense of belonging to either this family or community, then I wouldn't need to look for it anywhere else. So my role was like, how do I just create a space for young people to come where they knew that they're all important? And so they don't have to go looking for it somewhere else. And I think a lot of times our families try that. I think our parents are, my mom, she worked really hard. And I think that at times she thought I was, selling drugs. She thought I was in a gang. She'd be like checking my backpack and checking my pockets, and it would drive me crazy, right? But ultimately I knew, I didn't like it, but deep down I knew that she cared, right? Anytime let me see your eyes. Why are your eyes looking like that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm sleepy. I don't know, right? But every time she would have something that she thought was off, she was on me, right? And I think that's all the best she could do. The best she could do was to check everything that she didn't think was going okay. I think a lot of our young people, their parents are not doing that maybe. Or maybe they are, but they don't believe that that's out of some good place or whatever, And I think young people are waiting for people, for the adults in the world to care enough to be like, I'm going to be on you. I'm going to check on you. I'm going to ask you questions. And even if it makes you upset, then that's okay. You have the right to be upset. But I'm still going to ask you the questions. I'm still going to check up on you, right? And I think that for a lot of young people in my program, like when other people see me communicating with them, they'll be like, dang, you let them talk to you like that, right? And it's not because I'm talking to them in a bad way, but I'm like, where are you supposed to be? Where's your class? All right? And I may not talk the same way to the other students because I don't have a rapport with them like that, right? And I'm like, young man, will you go to class, please? Right? To the other person who's like saying that other stuff, right? But for them, I'm like, why are you not in class? Why are you walking around here? What's going on, right? Because I'm holding them accountable to a certain level of standards that they need to know that every time I see them, not following along with what they know is right, what they know is to be the best way for them to live their life in terms of their education. This is the school part. That I'm going to ask them about it. And that's because they mean that much to me. If I didn't care, I would walk right by them and I wouldn't say anything, right? It's much easier for me to walk by you and not say anything. And that's much easier, right? In terms of time and energy. But it takes work for me to stop and then come up with a list of questions to ask you, to have you reflect on why you're not where you're supposed to be right now, right? And I think about, for me, it's very hard for me to walk by students and not say anything, especially if they're like not in class or they don't have a pass. Like I may be like heading to the office for something, right? And I'll see like 3 or 4 kids without a pass. And the easy thing for me to do is just be like, just go to the office, right? Ignore it. But something like deep inside me says, say something, say something, say something. And I had this inner battle all the time. I'm like, all right, where's your pass, folks? You know, they're like, oh, I'm heading here. I'm like, get to class, right? And I always stop. And I think students start to know. They start to know that if I see them without a pass, they look at me, they already start answering the question before I even ask now, because it's something that I'm holding them expectations. I hold the expectation high for them because they can live up to it. You know, they can do great work. You know, when I had an opportunity to teach in India during my I think my 5th year teaching, and that was a powerful experience because living there in Southeast India, it was, you know, we have a country of 1 billion people. You have a lot of poverty, but being in a school where kids are like hungry to learn really showed me what is possible for our youth. Hungry to learn, right? Not knowing that I'm gonna get a job at the end. You know, there's so many engineers in India that are not working in engineering, right? But they have the hunger for learning. And how do we bring about that hunger in our youth? And one of the things I knew when I came back to the U.S. is that I needed to be prepared that I was coming back home and that it wasn't our kids' fault. It wasn't their fault that they didn't have this fire to learn, jumping out of their seat to answer questions. Like it was like something I had to prepare myself for because it was a switch. I had to switch myself back to this idea that our youth don't even know the value of this education that they're getting, so they don't take advantage of it. Because they knew the value, they would sleep at the school. If they knew that there was the value of it, there would be no reason for them ever to put down a book, right? But because they don't see the value in it, that's why the video games are going to take always the precedence. That's why the TV shows and those things and entertainment is always going to be more important because they don't see the value. And I think one of my roles in education is how do I help young people to see the value of their education, and because they can take them to many places.
Well, equally as important as the education is knowing oneself,
yeah,
and really being friends with yourself. And that's really not taught in the school. And there's really no place in time where that's really looked upon. A lot of the education is about really trying to suppress the person's personality and to join the collective so they can go into the workforce later. Now, it's very important, yes, education, absolutely. But where we're saying that they're joining the gangs or they're looking for this connection outside somewhere, that's because they're not really honoring themselves and not knowing themselves.
Yeah.
So there should be an incredible marriage of the two. It's happening simultaneously, where there's education going on, they respect that education. They can do that because they're really getting to know themselves too and becoming friends with themselves.
Yeah.
And in doing that, then they can start to understand why education is so important.
Yeah, I think that part of knowing yourself is also knowing that the people who are helping to guide you, the adults in your life, also know who they are, right? Because my mom, she grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. She left Arkansas because it was dangerous for her. Like for a girl, she had a big mouth. So in the 50s, like living in Little Rock, Arkansas, you don't really live long having a big mouth, basically the way they say it, right? So my grandmother told her, you need to go to California with your father because you're going to get yourself killed out here. So my mom knew identity, who she was. She knew that I came from a place that I couldn't speak my mind, that I was called whatever people wanted to call me, and I had to take it. And I'm here in this state, I'm here in California because of those reasons, right? Ideally, I think she wanted to stay with her mother. But the idea was that my grandmother said, you got to go. You're going to get us all killed out here, right? And that's in my mom's lifetime, right? That we dealt with in the U.S. with these things, right? So my mom came to California with the identity of self, but she always taught me that you treat people like they treat you. You do your best to live the best life you can, and you don't like hold any excuses for where you are, right? So for my mom having an identity, she clearly taught me who I was as a young black man growing up in Oakland. You know, every year on PBS when Roots came out. We watched it on television together. She made us sit. We sat down, and every year I look forward to watching it and learning about the history, right? Learning about how things in this country happen, right? Because she made me learn about identity of self. A lot of our young people, I think they lack a lot of knowledge of where they came from, about what strength is within them, and how hard that people in this country have fought for just the ability to be able to study together and live together.
Right,
and be
from
free.
slavery,
Yeah.
50 years old,
Absolutely.
as President Obama has said, now he's the President of the United States.
Yeah.
That's all happened within the last 50 years here.
Yeah.
Are they aware of that? Are they taking that into accountability?
Right.
And what does that mean to them?
Right.
As
And just understanding that isn't, it's not over. That the fact that we have President Obama doesn't mean that your work is over. You still got to study. You still got to do your homework. Him being president ain't going to help you get no better job if you don't have the education, right? So helping them know that, hey, that's a beautiful thing, but you still have to do the work. You still got to sit down and read the books. You still got to go and study. And so helping them have an identity of self comes out of them first being totally clear on they really want to be somebody, right? Like I can teach you a lot of history. But if you're not clear at some point that I really do want something out of life, right? Once you can just be clear on that, then we can begin to fill in all the gaps that you're missing, I think. But I think sometimes our young people are just operating out of like zombies. They put the earphones in, they tone out the world, and they just tunnel vision on through life. And they're missing. The world is just passing them by. And the zombies, the young people who are with the, not all young people with earphones are zombies, I'm saying, but they walk around as if nothing else matters. And that is what is a huge challenge for our youth, right? And so we're trying to connect with them. I might be walking by a young person down the hall. I'm like, hey, young man, how you doing? And he's not answering. I'm like, why is he not answering? Well, he got his earphones on. He can't even hear the world passing him by. I'm like, he can't even hear me. And that's all part of them understanding. Like, and I tap on the shoulder, and he's like, whoa, what's up? I'm like, how you doing? Good morning. Are you going to class? Good, right? But it's that thing that he's tuned out to the world. He's in whatever state of mind he's in right there. And that's an escape. And so we have to find a way to get our young people alive about life, right? And not tuning out. Sometimes you may need to just zone out. But how much time are you spending zoning out as a point that you're fully alert and alive?
So far we've been speaking about young men.
Yeah.
I'd like to speak about young women.
Yeah.
So what's going on with the young women?
So the Young Women program, so Ever4 started in 2004. The Young Women program started in 2006. So what happened was, every day at lunch, I was like, every Thursday at lunch, I was telling everyone who was hanging out in my room, because my room was like the hangout spots. Everyone, you got to go. We got Ever4. And the young ladies were like, what about us? And I'm like, well, I don't know how to have a meeting for you. I don't really know what you need, And so I began to look for a teacher who was willing to do that work, right? A woman, a female teacher who was willing to support them in the way they need, right? Because women need different type of support, right? And that program began to grow from there. So a teacher took over that part, and Ever4 began to grow from there. So right now, one of our chapters, the young women, they come together. They're doing 2 parts at Arise High School. That's one of our chapters. They're doing the team building sisterhood, which is the Ever4 model. And then on another day a week, they do a program which is like a political action program, which is learning about politics, learning about women in politics, learning how to meet politicians and connect with female women in politics so they can be empowered to decide whether that's something for them or not, but also just recognize how few women are in politics, but also recognize that they have a great opportunity if that's something they choose to do. When we do like our college trips and we do our community service events, the young women and the young men come together. I'm mentor on the young men's side. So right now we're in the search of, we have a woman who's just come on board to help us create a curriculum for the young women. So we're really excited about that. So the Young Women's Program can also have that strength, right? And so it's really been a growing process. It's been a growing process. It's always been important to me, but because I don't claim to be able to, I can't create curriculum for a young women's program,
Well, let's speak about the main difference between a young woman and a young man. The young men are walking around with the earphones on and the music and numbing out. What is the attitudes, the similarities and the differences between young men and young women?
Yeah, I think that both of them are walking around with earphones. I mean, definitely at my school, I definitely see more young men in the zone out stage. But I think that one thing is that when we get young women into a room, if a young woman came to a room and you say, so how was your day? Right? And you put young women in a room, young men in a room, and you start the question, so how was your day? In most circles, you will find young women will have an easier chance to get started talking about how their day was. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Young men, it may take a little longer, in my experience, because it's the wall, it's the mask that young men put up. So young women, I think, have a connection. I think it's oxytocin as a part of the chemical in the brain that allows them to, it's a connector chemical, right? It's like a bonding chemical. So they're really quickly able to start bonding. Even if they don't know them, if you're creating a circle for them, then they know it's somewhat of a safe space. They can quickly start talking about what's going on with them, especially about feeling things, right? About their feelings, right? Because, oh, this made me mad, or I was, they have the feeling talk. As for the young men, they may have a very visceral talk. Oh man, did you see that football game? They may talk about something totally less feeling operative, more maybe like sports or things like that, or more aggression or more things that don't have them go to a feeling level. And so for us, when we were doing the young men's circle, I don't sit in the young women's circle. I don't sit in the young women's circle. So for me, it's I've sat in a couple of their circles just to kind of go in and make announcements and say hello and check in with them. But I believe their circle is sacred. I believe their circle time, when they're in circle time, I meet with them for different things, but for circle time, I think that's a sacred space because that's their time to be able to let go of what they need to let go in a safe space.
So what are the similarities in the circles and in the programs between the men and the young women?
Well, I think the similarities is...
When you say that the women are more in touch with their feelings, the men are not in life, but do the men's circles get in touch with their feelings?
After a while. It may take a while. It may take a few weeks. It may take a month. It may take a couple of months. It's when they're ready.
So where the women are doing it right away in the circle,
Often.
the men are warming up to it.
The men are warming up to it. They're working on trying to peek behind the mask, right? Because every morning they wake up, they put the mask on. All right, what mask am I putting on? Depending on what community I live in, I may have to put a tougher mask on. I may have to put a whatever mask on. But we all walk around with our mask.
The survival
right?
mask.
The survival mask, right? And so I think that whatever it takes for them, I think that some circles I've been in, the first meeting, they'll come and we'll do a scenario where it just starts off with like, if you really knew me, you would know this. And they'll go around maybe 1 or 2 rounds. And usually by the 3rd round, somebody would have dropped in deep, right? Somebody would have they felt comfortable enough, or maybe whoever the facilitator is will lead with that. But every once in a while, that will begin the way of opening the space to be safe, right? And they know that that's a safe space. Everything is confidential there, but that's how you begin to allow them. And then sometimes we had one young man at one point, his first meeting, he dropped in deep. He revealed a lot of things about his life, about challenges, and he scared himself. I think he scared himself, and he didn't come back for a while. And I think he was so afraid of the fact that I think he thought we tricked him to go there, right? But we just created the space. And I think he just never had the space to be like, I can talk about this in a healthy way and get it off my chest. And then I think he was like, wait a minute,
nobody's going to judge me.
No one's going to judge me?
It's all good.
Right. But then the fear of the fact that I talked about it, and now that people may judge me after it was over, right? He'd already told everything, a lot of things, and then he was like, uh-oh. So for several months, he didn't show back up. And it was okay. Every time I would see him, I was like, you doing okay? I said, we'd love to see you back again. He said, oh, yeah, I don't know. No problem. There's never any pressure. When he's ready, we'll be there, right? But I think that for some young men, going there, it's so scary. It's so scary because now you got to wonder what other people are going to think of you, right? What are other people going to feel about me? How are they going to talk about me, or how are they going to connect to me now that they know that my life is not perfect? That the life I try and portray out here, that my life being perfect is not. And I think that our young women, we are at the Arise High School, where is our main chapter right now. There are some really strong young women there, and so they're helping to build and begin to lead the next level of leaders, the new freshman women. They're helping to build another circle of young women with the younger women. And I think that that's how we're going to help in the future. New alumni are going to come back. They're going to open up new chapters at different high schools, middle schools, so that they can begin to support each other. Because that's how it's going to grow. We have to have. I mean, it takes a village, right? It takes a village, and we all got to be a part of of collectively supporting our youth to grow and to flourish.
Are there different levels where it starts off in the basic, intermediate, and more advanced?
Yeah, we're working on that part right now. Well, one of the things that we do is, so young men during their first year, usually during the summer, they will go through Rites of Passage weekend. One of the organizations right here in Marin, the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. There's another one called the Young Men's Initiation Weekend. These are weekend events. So we are a program. We are an ongoing school day program. These events are they're weekends. They're initiation events, and they take place over a 3-day weekend or a 4-day weekend. And there's an opportunity for young men to be able to tap into, be around other men in the community and learn what does it mean to be a man. Learning it from other men in the community who are setting them up in this environment to be able to go through some kind of initiation. And I think that in our communities, we don't have rites of passage anymore, and definitely in Western world, we don't have rites of passage. In the old days, when you're around 12 or 13, the elders would come to the village, take you away, and take you through an initiation process, right? And when you came back, you were ready. You were ready if you made it back, right? Because in some scenarios you may not have made it back, right? But if you made it back, then there's time. You're either going to be a warrior, you're going to get a wife, you're going to be a hunter. But our society today, we have this gap between when young men think they're men. So at 13, oh, you're a young man now, right? You're a teenager. And maybe at 18, we'll say, oh, finally, you're a man. So in that 5-year period, our young men are walking around like in the zombie stage, right? Because they're not men. They're not boys anymore. No one's really taking care of them. They're not independent. So I got this 5 years of trying to figure stuff out where I'm kind of in a flux. And I think that's what's wrong with a lot of our young men is they don't have any responsibility. They don't have in different communities it's different, but I'm speaking in general. They don't have any responsibility. What do I have a responsibility when I'm 15? Chores, maybe?
Rites of passage today would be to go to Walmart or go to Costco
or get
shopping,
your license or something.
Get your license.
Right.
So it's a whole different dynamics
right.
today.
It's
really not honored and realized and respected for how important that is.
Exactly. And for a lot of young men, what would they get to do after that first year of being with us and learning this mentorship? They get to go to a Young Men's Initiation Weekend. And ideally, after they do 2 of those, then they get to work on like a production staff, right? Or they can just do another one. They can do more. We've had young men who've done 3 or 4 of them. But then they can work on production staff. They get to help recruit new members. And we're working on the levels, right, of now. Like when you become a junior, then you become a leader of a team. And then, so we're building those things in right now.
Ashanti, something comes to mind that there should be a level where the young men and the young women meet. And they have classes and they have circles together. Because this is very important about men knowing about women.
Yeah.
And women knowing about men.
Yeah.
And how to respect each other and what are their needs and what is that all about.
Yeah. And we do that. We do sometimes the mentors will set up classes that are together. So we'll have all together. They all come together and they'll do those things because I think it's really important.
The men and the women.
Yeah. Yeah. We've done classes.
And how does
like
that work out?
That's exciting. It's exciting. I think it's good for the young men. I think at where the chapter, we have 2 of them at Arise High School. There's both chapters. Those young men and young women, if you go and see them together, they're like brothers and sisters, right? It is a community. It's a community. And the young men's chapter has been around for 4 years. The young women's chapter has been around for 3 years. But it's been really powerful watching them build together and come together and learn from each other and begin growing. And so at each school, ideally, we want to expand to different schools, to different cities, different environments, because we know that there's a space for it. And just finding the right mentors at that school site to help with that is going to be the key, right? But it's powerful. It's definitely powerful for young men to hear from a young woman. How do they feel respected? In what way do they feel respected when a young man is talking to them? In what way do they feel disrespected? What things make them feel disrespected? And to have a young woman tell you that, or have a young man tell you that, like that allows them to sit there and own it, right? And that's powerful. Rather than somebody telling you, you know, in some club when they're yelling at you because you don't want to dance with them, like you having some clear interaction with a young woman who's saying, you know, it disrespects me when you pull on my arm and say, hey, come talk to me, right? Whereas some young men may think that's totally cool, right? Hey, come talk to me, right? They think that's a macho thing to do, right? Where young women may say, that makes me feel really uncomfortable, right? And I think that for them to be able to know and to have that space of powerful interaction is really important as well. So yeah, I agree with you, is that having them come together at times is important. That's why a lot of our field trips are together. We do a lot of things together. Just the weekly meetings, some weekly meetings are interspersed with team, the whole crew together. But our main function is for young men to have their circle and women to have theirs, and we do a mixture.
For those young people who are not going to have the privilege to be exposed to the program because they're in different parts of the country where that program may not be there, and they do not have the absolute divine pleasure to meet you as a great teacher, what would you say to those young people?
Yeah. Well, I would say find a teacher who you connect with, and ask them, look, would you be willing to help us start a young men's circle here, like a young men's support group, a young men's team? They can send me an email and I can help them with some ideas. But really, it doesn't take a whole lot. They don't have no one has to buy them lunch every weekend necessarily, right? They just need to set up a time, maybe invite 5 of their friends together, 5 people that they see. There's 2 things of it, there's 2 sides of it, right? Do I want 5 of my friends where they're going to tell me exactly what I want to hear? Well, maybe not. You may not want all your friends to kind of be in your circle, because one of the ways I describe it is that all your brothers won't be your friends, and all your friends won't be your brothers. You don't want somebody who's going to tell you everything you want to hear. You want people who are going to tell you what you need to hear. And I think sometimes when we think about friends, we think about people who will be around us to make us feel really good, right? Do you want your friends to make you feel bad? Well, not really, right? But a true friend is going to say, dude, why are you missing class? Why are you not showing up? What's going on with you? They're going to hold you accountable. And that's part of the work that I want to help young people do, is to say, look, this circle, everyone here is not going to be your best friend, because your definition of a friend may be something totally different. But everyone in here is going to be your brother, and they're going to hold you accountable and set you up for success,
And just the mere fact that you're saying hold accountable, that the mere fact that one is connecting with another,
right,
that is very empowering, so they don't feel so alone,
right,
and so isolated.
Right.
Absolutely empowering right there. How does one connect to your program? Do you have a .com website?
It's everforwardclub.org. Just 3 words all together, everforwardclub.org. And we are preparing for our big community service project coming up in May here in the Bay Area. So we got a lot of excitement happening right now.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What final thoughts would you like to share with the young people of today?
In my experience, I grew up with a lot of things stacked against me, and no matter where you come from, no matter what deck is stacked against you, you can overcome it. That you can, one step at a time, find those people who are trying to give you the light and trying to give you some guidance and to help you move forward. That's going to help you to just push through. And sometimes it's not going to come in the package we're looking for. Like the answer I was looking for, I didn't think Miss Bartlett Preston was going to give me that answer, right? I thought she was just a cool teacher. But that day she gave me a tool that changed my life. And sometimes we're waiting for the father we want. We're looking for the uncle we want, the mother we want. And when it doesn't come, we may think no one's out there giving me what I need. So we got to just be really mindful and just pay attention.
And that empowering tool that she left you with was?
That life doesn't give you what you want. Life gives you what you get, and you got to make the most out of it. And that's changed my life.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Ashanti, it's been a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
All right, you as well.
So from the Art of Conscious Living, please do take care of yourself and take care of others.